Here's a picture that probably goes back to 1890 with my grandfather behind that set of books. He was likely 25, 30. He looks pretty young. That was 1890. 15 people were working for the company at that time. He already owned the James T. Hare Company. But in 1903, Grandpa bought the American Hotel Register Company for $10,000. He combined the two companies, and in combining the companies, he decided to continue with the American Hotel Register name.
He had been a bookbinder. Thomas, a bookbinder, we find some of the stamps around still.
They were binders of register books for the hotel industry. It was required by law that strangers had to register from out of town so that the sheriff would know who's in town.
He had originally been at 51 West Washington. Then they bought 4 tenement houses at the corner of Franklin and Ontario in 1912. In 1913, he put up a 6-story concrete and steel building.
And here's a picture of him in his brand new office in 1914. And he put the name Leahy Building at the very top of it.
So when you're driving by there,
still there.
The Leahy Building, and he built that building.
Thomas Leahy, he died in the 30s, and when he died, he left the company to my grandfather, James.
Took it over 1932 at the age of 26.
I don't know that he was given a choice about going into business. I think it was simply taken for granted.
But he did keep the company going through the Depression and then World War II.
He didn't fire anyone. I think he had to take money from other places, and he had to take it out of his pocket to support the company. And I once asked him, why? Why did you just close the company? And he said, I had nothing else. That was it. It's simple. That was his life. And these were his people. And he couldn't leave them out in the street. It was who he was.
My grandfather wasn't as much into expanding it and growing it. He liked things the way they were. He wanted it to be predictable, and it's what we do. We don't need to do anything more. That's too much for us.
My grandfather worked on a map of all the hotels and motels in the United States.
And he really liked to spend his time editing a directory that his dad had produced for the hotel industry. Back in those days, there weren't the free listings of all the Marriotts and Best Westerns. Instead, he put out something for the traveler who in those days was traveling by rail.
He wrote off to all the chambers of commerce in the country, and he would ask what were the names of their hotels, how many rooms did they have, how much did it cost to stay there, and what was the address and phone number.
It became Leahy's Hotel and Motel Guide and Travel Atlas.
And it would list, so if you were a salesman, you would buy this book for $12, something like that.
People really relied on it in the early days.
Oh my God, look at him.
In 1965, my father dropped the keys in my hand and he went to work on this travel guide. And the company was so small, there's actually 3 different divisions. One was his travel guide, one was his advertising branch where we actually had salespeople out. And thirdly, the actual catalog part of the business in 1965 was only about $250,000 a year. When my father had gone downstairs, put out his travel guide, I had eliminated the advertising and then expanded the catalog. One of the very first things I did was contact 80 major manufacturers and asked them if they wanted to be in our catalog. They all responded positively and started adding all these products. The company was growing so fast that I begged my brother Jim to come to work, which had been our plan from the time we were little kids together.
He wrote me once, and I was bumming around Europe. He said, you know, there's some real opportunities here, not so much on the printing side, but in all those loads and loads of other things that hotels buy. And I said, well, give it a shot for a while, see where it goes. A couple of years later, Pat joined the company.
At that time, there were only 17 employees. When I was 7 years old and he was 9 years old, we were actually changing the name of the company. We had this dream At those ages, American was too confining. So literally, over 60 years ago, we came up with international supply. When I was 9 years old and he was 11 years old, we planned the first 5 companies we were going to buy. And we ended up buying them all. We were never asked by our father. It was never assumed by our father. We never come into the business. So as young kids, we determined by ourselves that our fortunes and futures were intertwined.
In 1966, I was just going to try to increase the number of pages and just test products. In the meantime, Tom was very, very good at the fulfillment side, inventory control and all that. My dad was watching the books.
He came back and took the catalog to where I'd grown it to, 100 and some pages, to the thousands of pages that it is today, and really the company just took off.
He did the catalog on our dining room table every September until probably February. And Jim would do the whole layout of each page of the catalog.
And growing up, I was at a home office doing work.
It took 5 years to go from $500,000, which was our sales in 1966. It took 5 years to 71 to sell $1 million worth of merchandise. And during that time, I had gone from 100 pages to probably close to 450 pages. Once we hit $1 million, we probably hit $5 million within another 5 years. And then 10 million a couple of years later, we started really growing.
From just a small printing operation, printing primarily just forms for the hotel industry, we became a master distributor, supplier to the industry and other industries since then through the growth of the catalog.
What's most amazing with both my father and my uncles has been they've been able to change over the lifetime because our business hasn't stayed the same.
It's amazing how the 3 brothers worked together as a family to bring their personal strengths to make this company grow the way it has. Jim is particularly good, I think, at product and operations. Tom is probably the most inspirational leader that we have and very good at the logistics and transportation side. And Pat, quite frankly, was by far the most sophisticated, socially graceful of the 3 of them.
My father was a great leader. Within the industry, he was well respected. I would say that he was able to bring a lot of customers to the table. He always said that the reason he stayed here was because he just loved the people in this business.
The hospitality industry was going through some fundamental changes. It was driven by the changes in transportation. When the travel moved from railroads to the highways and to the airlines, it made national business a lot easier and a lot more people traveled. It was just cheaper. Hotels started springing up all over the place. So we filled out that need and we really grew. We grew to about $40 to $50 million with the catalog alone.
And that was the beginning of the real company as we know it today.
So by 1977, we realized we really had to find a new home. We bought a 10-acre parcel in Northbrook.
I think I was maybe 7 or so when the building in Northbrook, when they broke ground on that. I remember being there for the ceremony with a photograph of all of us standing around the sign, and it was the whole big extended family.
Originally, our office was only 12,000 feet. Over the years, we doubled that, and then we doubled it again. And my father did continue putting out his travel guide, which had gone back to 1865. And just as his father had put it out, it said all the hotels in the United States. We went to Dad and said, "You're selling our mailing list for $16. Well, you're creating competition for nothing here." So 1979 was the last edition.
Had to be mid-80s. It became obvious that we were not reaching the real concentrations of purchasing the big properties in the major metropolitan areas. These were all purchasing face-to-face the way they had back in the days of the railroads. So we decided if we're going to be relevant, we're going to have to go add an outside sales staff and a national sales staff. We were being regarded as a regional supplier, and I was aware that we'd better look and open up distribution centers in other locations. We ended up in New Jersey. By the third year, its sales per room were up to where the Midwest was. We added then a distribution center out in Reno, Atlanta, Orlando.
Senior was getting ready to step away from the presidency, and when he did that, they announced that Jim would be president.
I think I became president in '85.
Jim basically, as I said, ran the catalog, I ran the office and warehouse. I hit my male menopause, midlife crisis, and I left the company for 7 years. And my father, even though he wasn't actively running the company, he was here.
He was going to American Hotel every day until right before he passed away.
My father's health turned and died September 26, 1986. Worked up until the very end. When my father died, my mother didn't know what she was going to do. At this point, I had just coincidentally left the company. So she moved into my office, became chairman of the board. How did she influence the business? Women have their ways. She had her opinions. I think she definitely had an influence on the direction that we all took. And she worked up right until she died in 1996. We ended up in 1996 buying 72 acres here at Vernon Hills. When our customers come here and see this magnificent campus, I think they're suitably impressed.
I am accessible. I do sit down with our new people in groups of 6, and I talk specifically about the culture and about the history, who we are, what we stand for, what they're empowered to do. It's important that they know that they're not just some number out there. They are part of a humanity, of a bigger something, and that they are important. I tell them they're special and important.
We have wonderful, wonderful people here.
I want to be working here. What keeps me going every morning is not necessarily money, it's the people that I work with. I have a wonderful team of salespeople that I work with. They love being here, and I love working with them.
The company has been there because, number one, the people who have been part of it. That idea that a family company goes beyond just like family. When we'd go in there, he would point to certain people and he'd be like, this person has been with us for 25 years, or this person has been doing their job for 16 years, or we just celebrated that this person. And so you knew that there were certain people who were the company.
Our associates here are really dedicated to our family, and we owe great deals to those employees that have stuck with us and stuck by us and have really put their time and values to this company.
The people that work there are its strength. We're very lucky to have them.
We really love those people. They're very special. In a real fundamental sense, they give meaning to my life, and they're wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I've kind of come into the company the last few years. I go to the office 2 days a week.
She is finding the problems, the things that need to be dealt with, that aren't being dealt with. The carpet that is turning ragged, conference room that is not very inviting.
Deb has been her thing, and she's done a wonderful job with it. Everybody knows her. Everybody loves her. She gets a lot of visitors, but she never turns people away. My hope is that it would continue to be a family company, that we would not go public.
I hope with all of my heart that my dad's vision continues. I hope that somehow we can make that happen. I want to stay together. I want to stay in our family. Yeah.
Jim has 10 grandchildren. I have my 7th on the way.